The following program is a co-production with EWTN and the Tim and Steph Bush School of Business and Economics of the Catholic University of America.
Hi, I'm Jay Richards with the Bush School of Business and Economics at the Catholic University of America here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to A Force for Good. This week we meet Cap Mona. Mona started as a lone electrician with no employees. Then he had one of what he calls his lucky breaks. At first he thought it was a parking ticket, but it became the beginning of what is now known as the Mona Electric Group. It's one of the nation's largest providers of electrical services in the influential market of Washington, D.C.
Cap is a visionary and also is an innovative business developer. That's really what has given Mona the stability.
It's a family culture. The care and the camaraderie is there, and it's real.
He wanted to see a lot of smiling faces, and through the years, he has certainly made a lot of people's faces smile.
He is always pedal to the metal. It's definitely always a wild ride with him.
Cap is a very unique individual. His energy is just incredible. He's a go-getter. He loves to start programs, and he sees them through, and there's nothing that he won't do or try.
It's an amazing story at that age to start with an old truck. How did you go from that in 20 short years to one of the largest companies in the country? How he did it, I don't know. Hard to say how somebody did it that nobody else has done at that age.
I was very fortunate to be born in the United States of America, and especially the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. When I took the big leap to go into business, thank the Lord, none of the qualified electricians wanted to work for me in the beginning because I was the smallest contractor in the city, the country. You know, when you have only one person, you got to be the smallest. I was fortunate. Didn't know that then. I was fortunate that they didn't want to work for me. That forced me to get friends and relatives to be my helpers. And then the family culture started back then, caring about each other. So eventually, a year or two later, when we did get top quality union electricians to work for us, they had to conform to our ways.
The work of Vincent Patrick Mona, Cap as he was nicknamed by his brother, has created a 50-year legacy of jobs, landmark projects, and charitable giving in the Washington, D.C. area. All have made Mona Electric unique in its industry. But it began humbly. After graduating from high school, Cap got married and started a family. He worked for years to complete the electrician apprenticeship program, working with several contractors during that time. But Cap wanted his own business. So with an old painter's van and a bag of tools, he took the leap in 1966. His big break came late one Friday afternoon on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C.
One day, a man came up and said, "I see you're an electrician." I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Would you put in one outlet for me?" Friday, 4 o'clock, I've been working hard. I'm the only electrician in my company. I said, "Yes, sir, I'll do it." And lo and behold, it was the best luck I ever had in my life. The one outlet turned into a Xerox, what was then called a 720. Every office in D.C. wanted one. I didn't know that was what I was getting myself into. But after I put the outlet in, he says, "Wow, I've been waiting 3 months to get that outlet put in. These people are screaming at me. No one wants to put in one outlet." I said, "I'll put in one outlet wherever you want me to put." He got me in every office building practically downtown. Within 5 years later, we had 100 electricians. And 10 years later, we had 600 electricians.
Through all the early success and rapid growth, Cap remembered the love and support of his parents. And he worked hard to make that family feeling part of the Mona Electric culture.
My father shaped everything, and he gave us such a positive attitude that you can do anything. And when you have that backing from a man you love and from a person who formed you and a mother with her attributes, can't lose.
I know there's no one out there that's relatively close to what Mona does. How much being a family is stressed. When we hire someone here, we make sure that they know and understand what our core values are, and that comes with a big old hug, and, we want everyone to feel comfortable. For me, it's always been home. Receive the signed proposal back.
Get all the material priced up.
This has always been a comfortable place for me, but I know that we try to instill that on everybody else.
One day I was sitting at home looking in the One ads, and I got a phone call from a person named Cap, who had an electrical business in Clinton, Maryland, and I was immediately suspect because it was just, Cap. Who has a name like Cap? And so he invited me down for an interview, and I met the whole family. He said something that just warmed my heart. He said, well, Gary, he says, for those people that are dedicated and work hard for me, my business model is I hire to retire, not to fire.
Sometimes it's the little things. Sometimes it's just a personal phone call from Cap Mona himself. He'll do that many times to our field electricians, to our office people. You're not just a name on a piece of paper or a number, and I think the Mona family has tried to, even as large as we've gotten, to try to keep it that family and very keeping it personal.
Like in any family, if you have a big family or small family, you grow. And when things grow, you just learn to adapt, and you incorporate all the differences that come with it and the culture and everything else. And I just found myself that, again, you embrace the growth of the company and that you're a part of it. And the reason we're so big we are today is because I was a part of that.
It's a philosophy of, we're business. Obviously, we need to make money. That's what comes if you do the right thing. And the philosophy is saying, it's about people. I always joke and say, it's not the fancy furniture we have here, it's the people we have here that make this company a success.
Cap treats everyone like family. You can always tell when he's in the building, he's giving everyone a pat on the back, a hug, a kiss. He lets people know how important they are. As someone that relies on volunteers, you can never say thank you enough, but I will guarantee you Cap says thank you every chance he gets. To his employees, to volunteers, to me. He's an incredible man.
People want to belong. We have almost 700 employees, and it feels like 700 relatives. In fact, I remember my friend one time said, he said, I'm trying to say this right now, but your place is like a cult. He's a good cult, a good cult. He says, everybody, like they all drank the same Kool-Aid. He says, they're really different folks over there. I says, thank you, Roy. I take that as a compliment.
That difference has allowed Cap Mona and his company to build an organization people never want to leave. Many of Mona Electric's employees have over 20 years of service. Some have been with the company for 30 and even 40 years. Cap inspired long-service employees with his personal family touch to management. He also showed them how to treat the customer and to remember that his name is on every job.
He always emphasized and made it a very important part of management, where you are the face or representing Mona, is that his name is on everything. His trade, the ability of his craftsmanship is labeled by how well he performs, and we are Mona. From that perspective, Cap said, don't do anything that'll sully my reputation or that will make a customer that we want to satisfy unhappy with our services.
No one says it better than Cap and the Mona family, I think. It's all about the customer. We've got to give them the exceptional service each and every time. And, a customer is not really just a one-time shot deal. It's a lifetime.
A job that I think gives us personally some satisfaction is African American History Museum. It's certainly one of the largest jobs we've done, but to be part of something like that has moved so many people just to play a part of that. When we talk to our people about, I know I talk to them when we would go down there and gather them together, say, how great it is to be part of something like that.
I'm old, okay? But I was taught in a fashion that I think still should be taught today. The customer comes first in a business. The employee knows that we don't have a job unless there's a customer. How long do you think it takes to get a customer, keep a customer? I'd rather keep a customer 10 years and try to find 5 new ones. Who knows how long they'll stay around.
Mona Electric provides top-notch service to customers, as well as jobs and family support to its employees.
And it gets his guys to start.
But Cap also learned about charitable giving growing up with his grandparents and parents. They supported neighbors and made sure people in their community were not left alone. Cap's company does the same through many of its projects and fundraisers. The largest is Christmas in April in Prince George's County.
What we do is repair homes for elderly and disabled people. It's free of charge to them. We always do it the last Saturday of April. That's why we're called Christmas in April. We repair now between 80 and 100 homes each year, about $42 million worth of work. We have 3,500 volunteers come out last year and the year before. We do as much as we can for these people that just can't do the work themselves.
What you give is yours forever. What you keep is lost forever. That's the mantra that was taught to me by Bishop Curl.
Cap's son, Andy, was a key part of Mona Electric's service business. He became its president and helped shape its operation and growing success. Sadly, Andy passed away from cancer at age 28. He left behind his wife and young son. Today, Cap is funding a new student center at Bishop McNamara High School, where Andy graduated in 1982. The assistant project manager for Mona Electric is Andy's son, Andy Mona II.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. It has my dad's name on it. If there was one thing I could do, it would be to get to know Andy better. He passed away when I was a couple weeks before I turned 2. So I don't have much memory of him. Through this whole process, and even just working at Mona, I feel like I've gotten to know him better. I can't put words to that.
People have asked me before about the giving and the caring and donations, and I said, well, I love my family. I love my family name, and I love my business, and I want my employees and my friends to realize we do our share.
It started in the early 1960s when a young electrician installed a single outlet for a customer. Today, the Mona name is seen on service trucks and projects across the Washington, D.C. area. Through it all, Cap Mona never lost a sense of gratitude for his many blessings or his desire to share those blessings with others.
With a little bit of luck, a little bit of helping hand, a little bit of caring about somebody and doing the proper quality job and having the customer as the focal point and having our people as brothers and sisters and family members and team members that we all work for the common good. And we're so lucky to have the folks that we have. Unbelievable. I'm the luckiest guy in the world in business.
In a book he wrote to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the company, Cap described his blessed life in this way. My life would not have been possible without having been born in the USA, the country that patented the entrepreneurial spirit that allows any class of person the opportunity to succeed. Many people think that entrepreneurs are always found in so-called white-collar professions, but there are plenty of prospects for enterprise in what we've come to think of as blue-collar work. To talk more about that, we're now joined by Bob Keith, who's a colleague of mine at the Bush School and an entrepreneur in residence at Catholic University. Bob, good to see you.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you with me. Well, you saw the story about Cap Mona, and I mean, I know you've talked a lot about small and medium companies because the news that we usually get in the business press is about these high-tech companies, Fortune 500 companies, the big ones led by these sort of magnates of enterprise. But of course, there's a lot of these small enterprises too, aren't there?
There are. What caught my attention was a few years ago. I was looking through the Harvard Business Review, and say over the last 10 years, there's probably 1,000 articles. And I was sort of looking at the distribution. About 499 of them were on big companies, and about the other 500 were on startups. There was one article on a small business, and that sort of caught my attention. And I think it is true. The media does tend to focus on the tech startups and the Fortune 500s. But if you really think about it, the bulk and the core of employment in the United States, and for that matter around the world, is formed within small and medium-sized enterprises. And so that began a search for me to better understand that. And quite honestly, why don't we really focus on that, say within a business school like at the Bush School?
Yeah, I guess that's my question. I mean, part of it is an information problem, right? Even with this show, we find great stories of business people, but small business people are they're sort of hidden in the trees, and unless you happen to have a personal connection, you won't know that they're there. I mean, we know about Cap Mona in part because I see a Mona Electric Group truck almost every day when I'm driving home from EWTN. So he started out very small, one guy with a truck and some tools, and has ended up a very prominent businessman. But I mean, he also was in what we think of as a blue-collar profession. Is this a misconception that, oh, well, entrepreneurs are really a white-collar thing?
I think it is a misperception. If you go back in history of the United States and think about entrepreneurialism, it was all small business focused. Products and services and really building strong communities around that small business. I think in a way we've lost that sense, that mindset, if you will. And that's what really intrigued me. In fact, it's interesting, if you look at the student population at the Bush School, about 25% of the students in the school come from a family or small business.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. That's a very high percentage. And that also caught my attention. Was we have all these students, some of which may possibly go back into a family business, some may not. Some may not even know, why would I want to go into a small business?
Well, so you're working on this program. I know right now you're working on a seminar, and it has to do with inner city entrepreneurs. Tell us about that. I'm still patchy on the details myself, but it sounds very exciting.
Well, it is. It actually goes back to a concept we were working on in the Sioka Center. And the idea was, what could we really do in our neighborhood, in our broader community, to make a difference and an impact, and also bring the students into that fold. And so as we began to think about it in more detail, we kept thinking, maybe we should really begin to focus on small businesses, maybe in the community. And so we began looking at that as an opportunity. At that point, we decided we would bring in another program, the Initiative for Competitive Inner City.
What's that?
It's a group out of Boston.
Okay.
It was formed by Michael Porter from the Harvard Business School about 20 years ago, really to focus in on small businesses.
So this is a sense of partnership between a business school at Catholic University and then a bunch of budding young entrepreneurs in the DC area.
Yes, and so we're bringing their program into Washington, D.C. for the first time. It's called the ICCC program, not to mix up the acronyms. But it's sort of like a mini MBA program. And the idea is to identify small businesses in the inner city that are really looking to grow. And by virtue of growing, they'll bring employment and more opportunities into their community. So what we've done is we've gone out, sort of cast the net, and we have now identified more than 100 small businesses in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding neighborhoods. And they're about to come into this program, the ICCC program, sort of a mini MBA, and they're going to start that in September.
That's exciting. Well, I'm already thinking these will be folks in a couple of years that we'll have on this show, I hope.
Absolutely.
I mean, the reality is, most small businesses fail. Some succeed and they become medium-sized businesses or even thriving small businesses. So that's exciting. This can be a feeder program, actually, where we talk about them on this show.
And so you asked about the students.
Yes.
Where do they come into the mix?
Yeah.
So the idea was we have this really interesting program. We're bringing these small businesses from our neighborhoods, if you will, right into this program. And what we said was, we have 25% of our kids from these small or family business backgrounds. What if we were to create a year-long, what I call small business experience seminar? So in the fall, they'll sort of shadow the small business participants in the ICCC program. And in the spring, we'll match them into small teams, and they will work as apprentices for these
Perfect.
small companies.
Oh, this is really exciting. I've just been hearing bits and pieces of this, but I didn't have the whole story. It's really exciting. Well, talk a little bit about the role of culture in a business, because I know for Cap Mona, I mean, he was trained as an electrician. He wasn't trained, he didn't have an MBA, and yet clearly when we talked to him, we realized this idea of what he called a family culture seemed to be important to his success.
What he sort of talked about was bringing his values into the business, his virtues into the business. He talked about creating a culture, and he talked about integrating into the broader community. That to me is what really small businesses are all about, is getting integrated into the community and then paying it forward by providing different jobs for others in the community, as well as, say, nonprofit activities.
Yeah. All of the above. Those
Absolutely.
are all different ways of giving, you know, and that's what I really love about his story. Well, I think related to this idea of corporate culture and how important that is to success, is this phrase I've heard you use of the spiritual entrepreneur. What do you mean by that? I mean, I assume you're not talking about priests and religious, you're talking about some specific thing or particular type of business entrepreneur.
Yes, a very important concept. So my own journey was sort of on the tech startup world, biotech in particular, and then thinking about some of the social entrepreneurs I ran into. And along that journey, I ran into these individuals that I could not put a label on. And I ended up describing them as spiritual entrepreneurs. These were people that were deeply motivated by their faith. And they wanted to go out and create a great product, a great service, or whatever they were going to do. And they were going to use entrepreneurial thinking and tools to be able to do this. And so they were sort of combining their faith with entrepreneurial thinking and business building at the same time. Actually, one of the items I have on today as a piece of jewelry is from My Saint, My Hero.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And this is sort of one of the types of spiritual entrepreneurs that I'm beginning to see. I never had even thought about it before, but they're baking their faith right into their products, the way they think about creating the culture in their companies, how they think about leadership, and really, again, how they think about the community and their responsibilities to the community.
Think about the Benedictines, ora et labora, pray and work. I mean, this is a little-known fact about the history of economic freedom and free markets, is that some of the first ones that practiced this were these monasteries in which these men, devoted obviously to their religious vocation, working hard, ended up creating profitable enterprises unintentionally, in part because they worked so hard, but they didn't consume the wealth that they were accumulating. They would reinvest it and ended up
in the community,
in the community,
in the broader community.
Absolutely.
And the community thrived. It flourished as a result of this. So it's very interesting.
Well, so do you think, I'm excited about the idea that this is an emerging, or at least re-emerging idea, but just very briefly, I mean, do you think that these spiritual entrepreneurs might have something unique and beneficial to provide, not just on the spiritual side, but business side? Do you think they make better entrepreneurs?
I think they tend to think very long term. Let's call it, they have an eternal vision. And just like Cap, he built this company years ago and has continued with it. And so they tend to have a very long time horizon. They think a lot about the individual humans, the employees that is, or the community they're working with. So they tend to go about their business in a slightly different way. And I think they're beginning to even think about what products to design and what services to create that have a more, let's call it, theological bent embedded right in them.
That's really exciting. It's nice that we can profile these stories, and I'm excited to keep up with you and the work that you're doing here at DC. Thanks for joining me, Bob.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right.
Successful business people often get involved in charitable work, but should they think of their charity as giving back to their community? Many people who succeed in business become philanthropists later in life. Henry Ford and Bill Gates, for instance, founded two of the largest foundations in the world. Gates may spend more time as head of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation than he spent as the head of Microsoft, the company he co-founded. Donors often describe their charity work as giving back to their community. They know the many ways they've been blessed, and so they want to be a blessing to others. But that expression, giving back, makes it sound like they took something that they needed to return. If I borrow my neighbor's lawnmower, for instance, I should give it back when I'm done. Is that the best way to think of charity? I don't think so. After all, Bill Gates didn't become a billionaire by vacuuming up all the wealth in his community, which he then had to give back. Rather, his company created wealth for himself and millions of other people. He then took much of the wealth he accumulated and devoted himself to another kind of giving. Or think of Truett Cathy, the man who founded Chick-fil-A. Long before he set up a charitable foundation, he was giving his time and his talent to his employees and to his ever-growing throng of customers. When he passed away, he left behind not just charities and a foundation, but a growing company. In all these cases and many more, there would never have been a charity without a thriving business. We often think that the thing we call charity is the main way, or even the only way, to help the poor and less fortunate. But that's not true. Spend a little time studying economic history. You'll find that the normal way that poverty is alleviated is through property rights, trade, hard work, enterprise, and business, not through charity. Does that mean charity is bad? Of course not. Charity is like the edges and gleanings in the Old Testament. Before the Israelites inherited the Promised Land, God told them this: "When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your field to its very border, nor shall you gather the gleanings after your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger." The edges of the fields and the gleanings were like the leftovers of a rich harvest. They were left for those outside the normal system of exchange. They could never have fed an entire city or nation. That's a good way to think of charity. It comes from a prior abundance. The more abundance there is, the more charity. Charitable gifts can meet emergency needs and needs that fall between the cracks of the economy. But nations can't vanquish poverty by charity alone. For Catholics, charitable giving is not an option, it's a mandate. God calls us who live in abundance to share our wealth with others. Let's just remember that there's more than one way to give to our communities. That's it for today. I hope our show has provided a glimpse of how business can truly be a force for good in the world. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jay Richards. See you next time.